Welcome to another edition of Chaplain John with Chaplain John Sayers, featuring special reports and interviews with people doing kingdom ministry in Tulare County and beyond. And now, here's Chaplain John.
Hey, let me invite you to go with me to the Recovery Church. That's the theme for this YouTube/podcast. Now, if you're listening to my podcast, or if you want to know how to find my podcast, please go to chaplainchat.podomatic.com. That's chaplainchat.podomatic, spelled PODOMATIC.com. Hey, I am, as I've been sharing on a few other podcasts and YouTubes, I am starting to write a book, and it's almost getting done. And I'll let you know when it gets out. And the book is going to be called The Church, Wherever You Go, There It Is. The Church, wherever you go, there it is. This book is going to be how I see the church all around us. All around us, where two or three are gathered in my name. I think there's the church. And I see it in every chapter. I've did different chapters where I see the church. For example, chapter 1 is going to be called the Zumba Church. Had a lot of fun putting that together. I have another chapter called the Church of First Denny's, where I meet with people, and I've got it all around me. This chapter is called the Recovery Church. And when I talk about the Recovery Church, I think I'm experiencing something and I'm talking about Celebrate Recovery. Celebrate Recovery is something all over our nation. I have the joy of being asked to speak at 2 Celebrate Recovery gatherings, one on Wednesday and one on Thursday. And sometimes other Celebrate Recovery groups ask me to speak. It's a joy to speak at them because a lot of the ones that go to Celebrate Recovery, it's kind of like a Christian AA group, but it's Christian orientated. Many of them that go to these Celebrate, they knew me in jail as their chaplain, even though I'm retired now as a jail chaplain. Oh, by the way, I've got a chapter called the Jail Church. But they'll see me and they'll go, Chaplain John, and I'd much rather see them in the Recovery Church than in the Jail Church. Well, I want to share with you a chapter that I had a joy of sharing with 2 Celebrate Recovery groups already. Just read the chapter to them. Now, I am going to do something a little different because I normally don't preach from a manuscript. I usually have an outline. And I remember in seminary once we had a preaching class, and the professor gave us an assignment to come up with a 10-minute message. And he wanted a manuscript sermon where you read from the manuscript. I go, I've never done that before. I don't do that. I always go from outlines. Well, so in order to do a manuscript sermon, I had a topic. I made an outline of it, and then I preached from the outline on a tape recorder. It was a big, clunky tape recorder. And then I listened to the sermon, and then I typed up the message. Okay, that's how I did it. So the day came for me to give my manuscript sermon. I gave the professor the manuscript and I gave the message. And at the end of the message, the professor said, John, you did not give a manuscript sermon. I go, what do you mean? It was right in there. He goes, no, you did it from an outline. I wanted you to read it right from the paper. And so I got docked a half a grade or something. I don't know. Well, I'm going to do something with you right now. I'm going to read to you the chapter. And it's not a long chapter, just 2 sides, and about the Recovery Church, which I shared with some of them already. And so here it is. In the chapter, this is going to be one of my chapters of the church, wherever you go, there it is. And it's called the Recovery Church. History of Celebrate Recovery. Celebrate Recovery started in 1991 at Saddleblock Church in Lake Forest, California. At that time, the church was meeting at a high school gymnasium. John Baker wrote Pastor Rick Warren the now, in quote, famous, concise 13-page single-space letter outlining the vision God had given John for Celebrate Recovery. After reading John's letter, Pastor Rick said, "Great, John, go for it." Celebrate Recovery is not just growing in churches, but recovery houses, rescue missions, university, and prisons around the world. New Mexico was the first state prison to adopt Celebrate Recovery into its state prison system, and now has Celebrate Recovery pods in all state prisons. In August 2004, Celebrate Recovery was announced as California's state-approved substance abuse program for prisoners. This is an exciting, growing outreach opportunity for every Celebrate Recovery. We are a part of something much larger than one church Celebrate Recovery. We are part of a movement that God is blessing, taken from the Celebrate Recovery webpage. In Tulare County, we have at least 6 recovery groups that are active in our area. And they were all started by Grandma Pat Colucci, who really started celebrating her life fully on June 26, 2021, 91 years old. She's with the Lord now. I, along with many others, was blessed to have Pat in my life for over 15 years. She was my friend, my counselor, my pastor, my chaplain. Well, you get the picture. Remember Woody from Toy Story sang the song, "You Got a Friend Like Me"? Well, that was Pat for me. I will never forget the time I needed that friend more than ever. It was sometime around my 10th year serving as a jail chaplain in Tulare County jails that I got a call in my office. The caller informed me at that time that their pastor was arrested and in our jail. I was shocked. Not only did I know this pastor, but I shared the platform with him on a few events where I was the speaker. He was a singer and song leader. This pastor was well known in our community. His testimony was powerful and how he recovered from drugs. I will not share with you why he was arrested, but he was guilty of the crime. I called the part of the jail where he was at, asked the sergeant if he wanted to see Chaplain John. This is the first time I ever asked an officer if I could visit a person in our jail. I asked this because I was hoping the pastor would say no. The sergeant got back and said he wanted to see me. It was hard for me to see him behind bars in a jail outfit. His case lasted a few months and was found guilty. His trial made a big story in the paper and in the news. Before going to prison, he said to me, "All I did was swap one addiction for another." I assumed he was talking about his drug addiction to the one that got his in prison time. Pat knew this former pastor better than I did. I shared with her what he said to me. She said, "John, it was not his addiction to drugs to this crime he committed. It was addiction to drugs to his addiction to fame. From addiction to drugs to addiction to fame. He never put himself under any authority, let alone God's. He got caught up with all the attention and praise people were giving him, and he forgot about God." I wonder how many famous pastors got caught up with all the praise they were getting, and they forgot about God. Then I started to worry about myself. I said, "Pat, you know I'm getting well known in our community. I get asked to speak at many events. People know me in and out of the jails. Chaplain John. Pat, that could happen to me." And Pat said to me, "Don't worry, John, I have your back." If my friend Pat saw that happening in my life, my friend Pat would bring me back to God. You know, even as I type this story and Pat is in heaven, I still feel she has my back. Now, in this book, every once in a while, I have a section called Putting on the Pastor's Hat, a little sermon thing that comes to my mind. So this is Putting on the Pastor's Hat. I heard a message on the full armor of God, Ephesians 6:10-18. I have heard and I've taught and I've preached that message many times. Yet this message, I heard something new. The speaker said that the armor covers all the attack from the front, but not the back. We need to stay in the church. We need to stay in the church. And yes, I mean the church, wherever you go, well, there it is, because we can watch each other's back. I wish someone someday would write a book about my friend Pat. She had a ton of sayings, but the one I heard her say many times at Celebrate Recovery Group was, "You alone have to do it, but you don't have to do it alone." In the recovery group, we watch each other's back. And today, we have folks cheering us on right now, watching our back. And even the saints in heaven cheer us on. I know one that's doing that for us right now in the Recovery Church. Hebrews 12:1 from the Message says this: "Do you see what this means? All these pioneers and who blazed the way, all these veterans cheering us on, it means we better get on with it. We better get on with it." Now, let me end this chapter by sharing some responses that I got from Celebrate Recovery, those in the Recovery Church. I asked them, why go? What does this mean to you? And some of them said, it's a new life, a new beginning. It's a I go because it's a closer relationship with God. It's giving back what you've been given. It's getting right with Jesus. Well, I hope you find that Recovery Church. Maybe the church you're going to is the Recovery Church, because then we get right with Jesus.